Hello everyone, Mark Heck coming to you from the lovely Genoa Bay on Vancouver Island. I want to talk about BC. BC is in serious trouble. If Alberta separates, and it's increasingly looking like it will, then BC is going to have a whole raft of problems it doesn't even know about yet. As a geographer, I think this is going to go a certain way, and I'm going to tell you what I think. But first of all, we have to understand that historically, the world goes through periods of expansion and contraction. Empires rise, empires fall. Countries expand, countries contract. We in the West are currently in a phase where we're right at the end, at a beginning phase of contraction. And I think, strangely enough, Canada might actually be the first large major country in the West that ends up contracting. This is going to happen when Alberta separates, and it inevitably will take Saskatchewan with it. Plus, I think it'll also probably take the southwestern portion of Manitoba. So in one sense, Canada as a country is going to contract, but the prairie provinces are actually going to expand into one giant new state. This is where BC's problems begin. BC will in fact start to contract in a way that's totally unfathomable to almost everyone right now. Barring the emergence of some unifying figure like a Bismarck or a Napoleon or even a Thomas Jefferson, BC is going to go into a phase of contraction and dissolution. This is going to happen in 3 stages. In the first stage, when Alberta goes, British Columbians are going to be completely shocked by this event. But then they'll start thinking, well, it doesn't affect us, everything's going to stay the same. Wrong. Very, very wrong. See, the problem is that most people assume that countries are essentially a landmass that has a capital somewhere in it. There are other countries which we need to think of more as what are known as entrepôts. And these are port cities that happen to have a landmass behind them, which are called a country. For example, Copenhagen. Copenhagen is an entrepot. It's basically a significant port city that sits at a geographic point where ships have to flow through a narrow strait in order to get goods to the rest of the Baltic Ocean states, places like Russia and Finland. In fact, Finland is another example. Helsinki is a port that happens to have a large landmass behind it that extends all the way up into the subarctic. And we just happen to call that place Finland. The Baltic states. We've got Tallinn and Riga are both entrepôts. Goods flow into them and they go off into the continental area, off into Russia. We just happen to call the land masses behind those entrepôt cities, we call them Estonia and Latvia. But these are essentially entrepôt cities. Now, if we take that concept and we bring it over to North America, let's say the western side of the North American continent, what we find is that there are 5 major entrepôts on the western side of the North American continent. You've got Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. Each of those have goods that flow into them, and then those goods are shipped eastward on either rail or highways. Los Angeles, for example, everything goes from the Port of Los Angeles across the I-10 to Texas and beyond. And Vancouver, well, it's got the Trans-Canada and the CP Rail, which goes all the way across Canada. Now, the thing about entrepôts is very good at sharing territorial or political space with other entrepôt cities. So Seattle is fine. Seattle is basically Washington. Oregon is fine. It's got Portland. But Los Angeles and San Francisco have to share California, and they don't like that very much. In fact, if you look at the states with the most secessionist movements, historically speaking, that would be California, as in San Francisco and Los Angeles don't really want to work together. But that's where they're at right now. So if we take that concept and we bring it up to British Columbia, British Columbia has the major entrepot of Vancouver, but it also has a secondary entrepot that most people forget about, called Prince Rupert. This is where the trouble starts. So if Alberta goes, then what's going to happen is BC is going to be looking around at itself, and the two entrepots within the province, Vancouver and Prince Rupert, are going to be looking at one another. And Prince Rupert in particular is going to be saying, our territory is essentially northern BC. Why would we want to be aligned with Vancouver? Why would we want Vancouver to be telling us what to do? And so this is where things start. Prince Rupert and the whole northern part of the province are going to be looking at options of separating from one another. So this is stage one, but this questioning actually happens throughout the entire province. And so stage one, we've essentially got a partial or full breakup of the province into three areas: north, south, plus Vancouver Island. Which brings us to stage two. Now stage two, you've got these three regions saying, well, maybe we should go on our own. But you've got a place like Vancouver saying, well, fine, if that happens, no problem. We're still taking care of our territory. And they'll lay claim to the Port of Vancouver and everything, all the territory and lands to the Alberta border in the southern part of the province. At which point, there will be other regions which are fully culturally and geographically distinct from Vancouver. These particular regions are places like the Okanagan and the Kootenays. And they'll be saying, whoa, why should we be vassal states of the Port of Vancouver? That doesn't make any sense for us. Now, at this point, this is when Vancouver starts to say, well, we don't really care about the Okanagan and the Kootenays, mostly because the transportation that we care about is the Trans-Canada Highway, the Coquihalla, and the CP Rail. And those don't actually even go through the Okanagan or the Kootenays. So that's fine. Whatever the Okanagan and Kootenays does, doesn't matter to us. However, other regions in the province are also going to be looking at this and saying, maybe we want a little bit more independence as well. And this is also going to include Vancouver Island. Now, when we're talking about Vancouver Island, well, we have to remember that Vancouver Island was its own separate colony before the mainland even existed as a political entity in the way we understand it now. So what will happen at this stage is you'll have all of these different regions of BC looking at maybe going and doing their own thing. And Vancouver Island will start looking at this as well. And it has always been the political hegemon of the entire province. But with a separation of powers and everything, it's going to start looking at itself and saying, maybe we should go on our own, and Victoria can remain the capital not of British Columbia, but at least of Vancouver Island. And that may seem really outlandish, except Vancouver Island is actually the same size as Belgium. So that is one option. Now there's going to be all of this turmoil going on about who controls what in BC. And it's because of its geography, its diverse geography, it is way more complex than you would ever find on the prairies. In fact, prairie people often don't even understand the entire complexity of the geography and the people and the cultures and the mix and the diversity in BC. But all of this diversity is going to cause a lot of dislocation and confusion. So I don't know how all of this goes exactly, but these are the general patterns: stage one, stage two, stage three. All of it including a lot of questions about who has the power and where is the power coming from, with entrepot playing a major role. So when Alberta separates, and I'm quite sure it will, BC will have to have some pretty tough conversations. Unfortunately, I don't think BC is even aware of any of this. I think actually most of BC is just considering Alberta as a bunch of fringe minority separatists, and they don't have to worry about anything. So they've kind of tuned out. The problem is, when it actually happens, they're going to have to tune back in pretty quickly. And I don't think they're ready for that. And they've actually got less time than they think. Oh, and one other thing. If you're thinking that British Columbia, at least the interior British Columbia, should actually separate and go with Alberta, I have to tell you, that is not going to happen. I will explain why in a different video. If you want to keep updated on why, make sure to subscribe at New Canada Conversation on YouTube. Okay, bye for now.